rebates are extremely difficult to track. Carriers love to pile on eligibility requirements, things like minimum spend levels, volume requirements, making rebates subject to minimums, and they rarely provide any real-time updates how you're performing against all of these criteria. Hey there, shippers, and welcome back to another episode where we talk about all things parcel shipping. If you're dealing with shipping costs, logistics headaches, and sustainability challenges, you are in the right spot. Today I want to unpack carrier rebates, what they are, why they're often not as beneficial as they seem, and some of the key reasons why I typically recommend negotiating them out of shipping agreements. To start, let's make sure we're on the same page about what a rebate actually is in the parcel world. Rebates are essentially promises from carriers to pay you back a portion of your shipping spend at a later date if you hit their criteria. They're most commonly offered by UPS, but FedEx has versions of them as well, and these come in a variety of flavors. There are quarterly rebates, annual rebates, loyalty rebates, even deferred rebates and incentives, which are really more of a cousin to rebates, but generally they fall within a very similar category. At its core, it's the same idea. You pay your standard rates up front, and if you meet upon the agreed upon criteria, the carrier sends you a check at a later date. And this sounds pretty good in theory, but there's really plenty of reasons why shippers ought to be cautious when they encounter these terms. The first is that rebates are extremely difficult to track. Carriers love to pile on eligibility requirements, things like minimum spend levels, volume requirements, making rebates subject to minimums, and really to top it off, they rarely provide any real-time updates how you're performing against all of these criteria. You're often left guessing for months whether you're even eligible for your rebate. And then there's been many cases where, in my personal experience, I have seen shippers actually miss the mark in achieving these rebates. And this can cost shippers tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in spend and revenue. The second is that rebates really create an intentional barrier to exit. When you've built your financial expectations around receiving a rebate, it can feel financially painful to switch carriers mid-agreement. Even if another provider offers you better service, better rates, or both, you're essentially trapped chasing between the rebate that you have and the better service out there. And that makes making that better business decision at the end of the day much more difficult to achieve. And, this is especially true if that rebate is tied to any sort of termination language, as can often be the case. Carriers really understand this dynamic well, and they use it to their advantage when they're negotiating and creating these terms and rebates. Rebates are by design intended to lock you into the relationship even when it stops serving your best interest. And in effect, rebates don't just incentivize loyalty, they manufacture dependency on carriers. They handcuff you to your current carrier and make any exit strategy far more complicated and costly than it really should be. Third, allocation of rebate checks is, quite frankly, a nightmare. When you do finally get that check, it's rarely clear how to distribute those dollars across your shipments or business units. Finance teams can end up chasing shadows trying to properly allocate the rebate revenue. And quite frankly, it's just a pain. And finally, there's the time value of money. Every day that rebate sits with the carrier instead of in your bank account, you're losing the opportunity to put that money back to better use, whether that's investing back in your operations, if you're covering costs, or simply earning interest. The bottom line here is that rebates really don't serve a lot of value at the immediate date. While rebates might look very appealing up front, once you factor in the tracking challenges, the lack of flexibility, the accounting headaches, and the financial costs of delayed payments, they usually cause more harm and headaches than any actual benefit. If you're negotiating a new contract, here's my advice. Instead of chasing down rebates, focus on negotiating upfront savings that you can actually use. Push for better transportation rates, lower minimum charges, or improved accessorial terms. If a rebate is important to you, consider trying to push for an upfront payment of like an implementation bonus. Those savings are immediate, predictable, and way easier to manage. You want your cost structure to be as clean and transparent as possible and not tied to any future promises that may or may not pay off. Real savings beat hypothetical rebates every single time. And you want to fight for certainty, not wishful thinking. If you like this video, please leave a like below or leave a comment. Love to hear from you.